My name is Gwen Goolsby Tillery, and I am the host of Kingdom Inspiration News, the show that is dedicated to highlighting what is happening in the kingdom, all the wonderful and positive things that are happening in the kingdom, to inspire you, to educate you, and to empower you. This is Kingdom Inspiration News. Hello and welcome to another episode of Kingdom Inspiration News. This morning, I'm excited to have this guest on with me, Eddie White. I actually connected with him through another KPTV person, Shakita Jackson. So thanks, Shakita, for referring this gentleman to me. I'm looking forward to this information that you're about to share with us. And I usually like to kind of highlight like what this section is going to be about. But there's so many different directions we can go on with this. You know, it could be an author highlight, it could be a business highlight, an inspirational and empowering highlight. So we're just going to call this a Kingdom Spotlight segment. And you're going to share some tips and information and nuggets with the viewing audience that ranges from your military experience as well as your training and educational expertise. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and share some time with you.
Good. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So my name is Eddie White. Like you said, my website, J. Edward White Jr., because my first name is James, but I tell people there are so many Jameses in the family, from my dad to my uncle, my cousin, that I got stuck with Eddie. So Eddie is my go-by name. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I now live in Virginia Beach. I've been married what will be 28 years in March, and I have two grown daughters who are 27 and 26. And I am excited to spend this time with you. Like you said, I spent over almost 3 decades in the military, and I'm a small business owner, and I'm looking forward to wherever this conversation leads us this morning.
Good. So, all right. Well, see, I didn't know the 28 years before we got started. So that's even another direction we could go in. Let's first start. We're going to touch on that a little bit. Let's first start with your 28 years in the military.
28 and a half to be official.
28 and a half years in the military. So what made you want to join the military, and what kept you there so long?
So I mentioned I was born in Pittsburgh. I actually graduated from the University of Georgia. So I went way down south. And when I got there, I realized that if I was going to stay there and graduate, that the out-of-state fees my parents were paying, I needed to pony up. So I actually was involved in the ROTC department at the behest of my dad when I first got to Georgia. And after a couple months of realizing that I needed to do my part, and I actually liked what I was seeing in the ROTC department, I applied for a 3-year scholarship. That 3-year scholarship got me commissioned in 1993. And after that, I was succeeding. I was doing well. I met my wife. I had my children. I was having success in my different positions. And after 10, 15 years, if you will, I realized that I can keep going until they tell me to get out. So I did a couple of career transitions, doing stuff that I still liked, got promoted to the rank of 06, which in the Army is colonel. For all those Navy folk out there, that's a captain. And at that point, why leave until they force you to leave? And actually about 30 years when they force you to leave, I ended up retiring out of Fort Eustis up in the Newport News area and settled down here in Virginia Beach. So that's kind of why I ended up staying in. And that's why I started, back almost 30 years ago.
Well, now that you've given me all those details, it makes perfect sense. You apparently had a very successful career in the military. And for those who decide to stay, you can be very successful in the military. It really is dependent upon the individual and how they basically take advantage or don't take advantage of the opportunities that are before them. Again, I have 3 brothers who are in the military, they did not stay in that long at all. I think the max number of years, my oldest brother, I think was 11 years. But no, he definitely didn't do that many years in the military. So, I salute you and I congratulate you and I thank you for all those years of service that you
Oh, you're
gave.
welcome. You're absolutely welcome.
So another 28, you said 28 years married.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. March 11th, it will be 28.
Okay, well, yeah, we're gonna just say 28 years at this point. So, oh my gosh, so with so many marriages not making it beyond two, what are you? I know it's hard to identify one thing that would be the secret to that 20-year successful marriage. I won't say easy. I've been married for 20, going on 21. So, coming up behind you, and we've definitely had our challenges. So not perfection, but success in that you're still together. What would you say would be one or two of the most critical things to having a long lasting marriage?
I'll go with, I'll call it the two C's since you want two. The first one is commitment. And I believe that's a mindset of commitment. That is when you go into that partnership with whether it's a husband or a wife, particularly for the husband, I would say, but definitely for both, you need to have a mindset that translates into your energy and your action and your attitude. That is, we're in this for the long haul. Years will roll into decades, decades will roll into 2 decades and 3 decades. So if your mindset is we're committed and I'm personally committed, then what you'll find is your actions, your empathy, your respect, your response to challenges, all of that will be funneled through a commitment attitude and mindset. So the first C I would say is commitment. The second C is communication. This is, I think everybody knows this one, and almost everybody who's been married probably got this advice before. But that communication is listening, not just hearing. That is being respectful of what is said. That self-esteem, carrying the weight of what your spouse has told you, and how you guys are mutually in it to raise your children or to further your relationship. And that's having actions that are representative of the communication and what you heard and what you said you were going to do. So I believe those two things, commitment, which is attitude, and communication, which is both listening and responding. If you get those two down, then a lot of other things will work out.
I have to absolutely agree with you. I would say that those would be the two that I would put at the top. I just add one more, and this is something that I actually just recently, I provide counseling services to individuals and couples. And the one thing that I've come to realize, it is kind of a part of the communication, but it's vulnerability.
Mm.
Being able to be vulnerable and be your true and authentic self with the person that you've committed to. That's the third one that I put in there, because if you're not able to do that, at some point it begins to impede on the communication.
No, that's a good ad. That kind of correlates with trust, because if you don't trust, you're not going to be vulnerable, and that creates all the scenarios that could be bad that you're talking
That
about when things get difficult.
exactly. So thank you for that tidbit, and congratulations on 28 years and success for many more to come. So, so good nuggets already. Good nuggets. He gave you the rundown on the military, why you should stay, how you should maneuver through it, and all the benefits of being able to do that. He's given us some tips on marriage. Now let's go into the second phase of your career, I'll say. So you come out of the military, and after being 28 years in the military, did you know immediately what it was that you wanted to transition into doing? Were you already doing it, or did you kind of have to figure it out?
I did not know immediately, and actually, I won't go deep into it, but I've always been guided by the Holy Spirit, even dating back to my 20s. It helped me navigate through my military career, helped me navigate through my responsibility as the head of my household. And I've always felt like I've been attuned to the Holy Spirit. So back probably about 6 years ago, where I thought I was going to go was in high school education. And I was actually making movement towards that when I was up in Fort Dix, New Jersey, which I mentioned to you off camera that I spent about 3 years there before I came back here to the 757. And actually during that transitioning, I was taking tests and preparing and with an expectation to retire in 2017, 2018. It didn't go as well or as easily as I thought. And it was communicated to me, I'll say that through the Holy Spirit, that that's not where I was supposed to go.
Mm.
And then I reoriented. I didn't retire in 2017 or 2018. I spent another 5 years or 4 years in the military, came back here to the 757. And then I was torn between going into government service when I got done in the military, so contractor, government civilian, or doing my business full time. And I go back to that message that was communicated to me through the Holy Spirit that I needed to really trust in the Lord and invest in the services that I can provide through my business. And that's when I decided, probably about 4 months before my official retirement date, to do all in with my business. And that really ties into my educational spirit. I believe that that charge that I had to go into education was not high school or secondary education, but it was adult education, which has expanded since then. So that was a lot to do. Discussions with my wife about the certainty of income, which, as you can imagine, Gwen, after 24, 25 years at that point, that was something she just wanted to make sure that was taken care of. The risk associated with going into a space where I'd been doing business since 2019, had never made money, and then I was going to go where it was going to be reliant, which I believed, for supplementing my personal income after not having positive or making a profit for the previous 3 or 4 years. So no, it was not, oh, absolutely no issues, let's move out. It was a lot of discussion, a lot of friction, a lot of prayer, a lot of trust. And I'm very blessed now to be where I am as a solopreneur doing what I'm doing.
Great. So give us some details about your business, this adult education. Very interesting. I found the areas that you actually work in to be quite interesting. I actually am a former, I say former, but I haven't completely retired, educator myself, 25 plus years
Oh,
in public education, from teaching to professional development to leadership, child study team, working in high school, middle school. So, yeah, and now have transitioned into more of like the coaching and training with adults. So, yeah, it's definitely two different worlds for sure. I can say that from my experience. So, tell us about all the different components of the business. What's the name of the business? And then tell us about the business.
absolutely. Well, we're kindred spirits, it sounds like, 'cause a lot of stuff you were saying is the stuff I operate in. My business name is Jad White LLC, and it provides adult educational services. So Jad White Adult Educational Services, if you look it up in that regard. And my master's in adult education. That's what my master's degree. My undergrad's in chemistry, my master's in adult education. So I think we're kind of, I call us cousins, because obviously I'm not in secondary education. Adult education is a little bit different. And because of that, and my spirit of education, if you will, my business focuses in three areas. I call it the 3 L's. The first one is leadership development. That's leadership in your home. That's organizational leadership, multiple echelons or single echelon, whatever it may be. My second L is my literacy line. And in my literacy line, I provide financial literacy. I'm also certified as a insurance and annuity agent, and I do different things to help, whether it's college students or adults. But my real area I love to get into in more depth is helping parents raise their children to be financially literate. And that is something a lot of parents struggle in or don't explicitly do. They at best model it, and then it plays out however it plays out with the literacy of your children. The other area in my literacy line is something I've just recently started doing, Gwen, and that is my life alignment. So I have a living your life framework, and it really applies to 20 somethings and 30 somethings, or people transitioning in life. And it's designed to identify what your aspirations are, where you are now, and how do you get there, factoring in all that life has to offer. So personal, professional, family, finances, mental, emotional, spiritual health, lifestyle, life changes, contextualizing all that so you can actually achieve what you desire or aspire 10, 15 years down the road. And then my last L is my legacy line. So parent education, fatherhood, particularly helping fathers raise confident daughters. And that's where I get into a lot of discussions with parents and fathers about how do they be intentional and deliberate about enabling their children to achieve success.
Well, that's a lot. Good stuff, though. All of it is definitely good stuff. You're right. We are definitely aligned in several areas. I also have a background in organizational leadership as well. And one of my programs is directly geared towards it's really women, though, women who are transitioning, women who have kind of worked out their career, raised their kids, and now are looking to see what's next in their life. So, yes, a lot of similarities. So, how do how do you go about this program? Is it group based? Is it individual based? Do you do workshops? How do you go about providing these services to people who are interested?
Yeah, mostly right now it is business to business. So I've realized after 4 or 5 years of running my business, one of my strengths is not necessarily in gathering people, if you will. It is in presenting content, and that's just as you know, all of us have strengths and weaknesses. So early on, I provide a individual or small group raising confident daughters, what I consider a master's degree program. I've done that for the last several years to people online nationally. But recently, the last probably 17 to 18 months, I've done small group through really either nonprofits or community or other businesses. So I do a parenting class up in Maryland, Easton, Maryland. So maybe about 15 to 20 parents, and I've been teaching them about the foundational principles, and I'll go into raising them during the critical shaping years from 6 to 12. And that's about a 2 or 3 year endeavor that I will provide classes per month. And then also have done small group life alignment workshops, and I've done parenting classes. Just did one last Saturday for Shakita through her Care for Me Youth Initiative nonprofit to young women in that class about how to establish a vision and define adulthood for their children. So it depends. I've worked with nonprofits, community, and other for-profit for leadership classes to parenting classes. But I've found that getting into relationship with those organizations who really have an audience that are seeking and can get value from what I can offer is the best way for me to get maximum access.
Great. So we have about 2.5 minutes left, but before we end, you're also an author. So tell us quickly about your book or books.
I've only done one book, kicking around doing a second one, but have not started it. My first book is about how my wife and I raised our daughters to be confident, empowered young women. The title is Start Point, Parenting in the White House, and that is, quote, the White House. Some people think it's a political book. I tell people, no, based off our last name, we've always called ourselves the White House. In fact, when I was up in the Pentagon, Northern Virginia area on our answering machine back in the day, Gwen, you remember that, I'm sure. On our answering machine, it said, "You've reached the White House." And my daughter's friends would always get sort of, shocked and stunned initially, but we've always called ourselves the White House. And the subtitle is Raising Empowered Young Women Through a Father's Eyes. So it is my perspective of what I did and what my wife did over the 20 years or so of taking them from about 3 or 4 years old up to about 21, 22 years old, and how we navigated that space, stories of what we've done, challenges that we've overcome. And a lot of that stuff I incorporate into my parenting class and in my fatherhood classes.
Great. So is the book available on your website or is it available on Amazon?
Yes to both. It's available on my website, and you can also go to Amazon. It's a unique, so I don't know if you can get a good picture of it, but you can see it has a picture of my daughters when they were younger to older, and a very distinct start point up top. If you Google J. Edward White Jr. on Amazon, probably will come up pretty quick. Or if you go to my website, you can easily get to it there as well.
Good, thank you. So now you have 45 seconds to give us. I always like my guests to give some kind of tip or tool, some motivation, some in something inspirational, empowering to leave the viewing audience with.
Wow, that's a pretty good ending to all your shows. Well, I'll go with fatherhood, and I'll go with being a present father, and the impact and power of that. So if you're a young father out there, and really for a parent, but particularly for a young father who's serving as the head of your household from an apostolic perspective, it is critical that you understand that you need to be present physically, mentally, and emotionally. So you need to be in the space with your children. You need to establish that relationship with your children and with your spouse. And you need to make sure that they feel that you're there. So don't just be there and they don't realize you're there, but be there and let them know, because your energy is there, your intentionality is there, and your focus on building that relationship that will reverberate for decades is there. So be a present father, invest in your family, be intentional and deliberate, love your wife and love your children, and make sure that they realize that based off your presence in their life.
That's really good. Thank you again for coming on. So much good information that you provided. And I look forward to bringing you on when you do the second book.
Thanks, Gwen. I have it marked for that. I will let you know when that happens. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the artist spotlight section of the show. And listen, she's already singing before we get started. I'm excited to have on with me Kenya Robinson. So, welcome to the show, Kenya.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Kenya.
Well, I'm a Dallas, Texas native, born and raised here, still here, married, two kids. Been singing since I was 5, playing the keyboard and a little bit of everything else since I was a kid. So, music is me. So,
Okay, music is me. So, well, then look, I don't have to ask you how you got started. You said you started from a child at 5 years old. Were you singing? You were singing at 5 in church, I'm guessing?
yeah, of course, singing at 5 in church with the youth choir. Anytime my mom would sit down and press my hair, I would ask her to sing and I would repeat whatever she did. So I've just been singing. That's just been a part of me. And my dad has been the band director at my church since I can remember. So I played saxophone, keys. I know how to keep a rhythm on the drums. So,
Wow. Okay, multi-talented in the music area. I appreciate that. I have no musical gift other
oh
than to
man.
be able to hear like I hear music like, well, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Uh
yeah, I don't sing. I can't sing. No,
huh.
like God, why didn't you give me that talent to sing? Because He knew I love music. I do love music. I
Hmm.
think He knew if He gave me the talent to either play or sing, I wouldn't do anything else. So I don't sing and I don't play instrument, but that is actually on my bucket list. I don't know if I want to go towards the piano or if I want to do the sax because I love the saxophone. Yes,
Saxophone is beautiful. I played sax for 3 years
I
and I
love
want to
the
get back to
sound.
it.
I love the sound of the saxophone. The keyboard is
Yes.
nice, but it's something about the sound of the saxophone that I
Yes,
absolutely
ma'am.
love. So yes, I listen, I really can appreciate that you are talented to be able to sing as well as play all of those instruments. So you grew up, you start singing,
Yes,
and your
ma'am.
father is over the choir, and so you acquire these music skills. How do you go from that to then deciding, okay, well now I want to take this to the next level professionally? And what was that journey like?
Okay, that journey is something crazy. It was all orchestrated by God, I promise. Number one, because I always not always, but I always wanted to sing, of course. And then later on I started writing lyrics. And so I would sit down and write. God would give it to me. He gives it to me differently each time. Either I sit down and write an entire song, or he'll give me bits and pieces through over the weeks. And I was like, I want to write songs and sell these songs and this, that, and the other. So somebody reached out to me and asked me, hey, can you write me a call and response song that's upbeat, this, that, and the other? I said, sure. So I did. I wrote the song. They ended up taking it to the studio, recording it, but didn't do anything with it. Years
Mm.
down the line, and I mean years, somebody called me and said, or when I moved back to Dallas from living in East Texas for a while, a producer called me and said, hey, when are we going to work on your music? And I was like, I don't know. I just want to write. So then told my husband what he said. He was like, well, let's go for it. And I said, okay. And so that's what we did. We went for it. I used that exact same song, had it copywritten, and ended up being my first single. October 1st, 2021 was when it dropped. And so that's what that process was. I just was singing, then I started writing, and then wrote for somebody. And then somebody asked me, well, when are you going to do your own? And so that's what happened.
How long were you writing for others before this opportunity came for you to actually become this independent artist?
Well, I had been writing for, I can't even put a number on it. I've been writing for a while. I'll say some years. But I had not written for anybody specifically until that one person reached out to me. And so that was probably 2008, 2009, something somewhere around there. I think it was more like 2008 that they asked for a song, wrote it for them, and then 2000 or 2021 is when I did it. So that's been what,
Mm. A
2008
long
to 2021 is what, 13? Is
eight,
that
10,
13
yeah,
years?
10, 8, 18, yeah, 18, 10. Yeah, it's been over 10 years. It's been a while. Look, I'm
Right,
like, it's been a long day. I can't math right now,
right. I'm trying
but
to.
it's been a long time. What was the process like from, okay, we're going to release this single
Mhm.
to actually releasing it? What was that like? I know for a lot of independent gospel artists, it's quite challenging for different reasons. What was your experience?
It was working with the producer I worked with and having a support system of my husband and my family made it quite easy because like I said, my father and even my brother, I have a brother that plays professionally, professional saxophone, matter of fact. He was able to lay the horns for me. And because I grew up around music and singing, I know a lot of musicians and I have a lot of friends. And the producer is one of my friends from way back because he used to cut my brother's hair. And so he produces music now. He's an excellent musician. And so he has other connections. And so it just made the process really seamless. Just about the only thing is like timelines. Like I wanted to have my single out by this time, but it was late or delayed a little bit because of this, that, or the other. But I say overall the process was a good process. Going from I have the song written, I got to take pictures, because you have to take pictures for your CD cover. Oh, let's do a video to go along with the song. Let's record the song. Who are your background singers? Who's your band? So it can be a lot on your shoulders, but if you have the right team, it can end up being something that's just a good collaboration. And so that's what this ended up being for my first one. So
Yeah, I think that that's key is that you have a good team.
yes,
You are
ma'am.
fortunate in that your team it seems to be a lot of family and friends, but for a lot of people that might not be the case. If I
Right.
decided I wanted to produce a CD, I wouldn't really be able to look to my immediate family for musical help. So yeah, absolutely, that was great for you. But I think the key in that is that you have to have a good team that really knows who you are, that supports you, but doesn't take away from the sound and what it is that you're trying to produce and get across as well.
Yes, ma'am. Most
Yeah.
definitely.
So you released a single in 2021.
One.
And how does it do?
It did really well. It's still doing well. It's still reaching people. Of course, it's not that initial hype that you have at the beginning, but people are still hearing it, grasping onto it, listening to it, watching it on YouTube. streaming it every once in a while. So, that's all I can ask, is that the song be effective and that it reaches people at whatever point in time God has for them to be reached. And so
Yes.
that's my desire.
So share with us the title of the single.
The title of the single is He's Worthy. And that talks about God being worthy to be praised at all times. And just different scriptures in the Bible highlight how we are supposed to. I will bless the Lord at all times, and his praises shall continually be in my mouth. Oh, clap your hands, oh you people, magnify the Lord with me. Things of that nature. Those songs are implemented into those scriptures, are implemented into the song to remind us that no matter what our lot is, no matter what we've been dealt with or given, God is still worthy to be praised because of Romans 8:28. I always lean on the scripture. Because of
Yes.
that scripture, we can count all things joy, because we know all things are truly working together, whether they feel bad now or don't look good now. God is working it out for our good, but for his glory. And so I always say that, like Romans 8:18, for the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. So if we understand that our suffering is connected to glory, that's why you have that song by J.J. Harrison, there will be glory after this. Like,
After
you're going to
this.
suffer for a little while, but when you come out of that suffering, look at the magnificence that God has waiting for you, the gifts he has waiting for you. For that reason, he is always worthy. And so that's what
Yes.
my song is about.
Yes. Always worthy to be praised. So that was my post for today. I try to post something every day, doesn't quite happen, but what God laid on my heart this morning was praise him as you go through. Praise him as you're going through. No matter
Yes.
what it looks like, you
Yes.
still have to be able to give God all the praise. Because like you said, at the end of the day, he's going to be glorified in it if we just continue to praise and trust him.
Yes. Yes.
So you wrote the song a while ago, and then you came to a point where you were able to record it. Did your like, I don't want to say your relationship, but when you hear that he's worthy, how did, when you initially write that song to when you were in the studio singing it, what was that change like for you? Because I know there had to be a difference.
It was a difference, because now it's more personal than it was when I first wrote it. So initially I'm like, okay, I'm writing this. Oh, this sounds good. This sounds really good, right? Sounds good. He's worthy. It's upbeat. People will be up singing it. They can catch on to it. It's easy, right? That's what I'm initially thinking. Um, Over the years, I've grown as a person. I've grown in ministry. I've grown spiritually. So I've connected even more so with the song that God gave me. So recording it in the studio was like, I want people to hear and know that he's worthy. So I gotta sing it. I have to
Right.
sing it like I know he's worthy. Um, and so that was the difference, I can say. I have never thought about that until you just asked me that. But that's one difference. Like, I'm writing for somebody else. It sounds good. It'll be easy to catch on to, compared to recording it yourself. And then you have people that are working with you in the studio that are professional. So they're like, they want to help you get this point across. So you can't sing it like you sing it in your living room. You have to push, and you have to do certain dynamics in order for people, for it to catch their attention, and in order for them to understand she is really ministering this, that he is worthy. And so going
Right.
from writing it to singing it or recording
Yeah.
it, totally different.
It has to come, I'm tapping, it has to come from your heart, and
Yeah.
it has to be like, it has to be authentic and real. And I
Right.
feel like, and I asked you the question because when you start talking about it, like, you light up. And so it lets me know that that's a personal testimony. When you say he's worthy, you're not just saying it because someone told you that. You're saying it And you're singing it because you know personally that to be the case.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Most
I can
definitely.
tell. I can tell when you start talking about it. I'm like, oh, this is more than just a song. This is a testimony.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the song actually did extremely well. And as a result of it doing well, you actually received a nomination. Did you receive a nomination?
Yes, I received several nominations from Rhythm of Gospel. And then, can I continue?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And I came home. God blessed me to get praise and worship artist of the year and gospel song of the year for 2022 from Rhythm of Gospel. So I was nominated for I think 6 awards, and God blessed me to bring home 2. So I'm super excited. I'm ready for me to finish my next one so I can see what is in store, where it will reach. To go out to the nations.
Yes, that's really, really exciting. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Continued success to you. You're going to get the opportunity to actually hear the song as part of this interview. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. Uh, Again, just how you light up when you talk about it says so much about, the heart of where you are when you were producing, when you were singing this song. So I'm excited to be able to share it. Before we go, what advice or what would you say to that independent gospel artist that, listen, I'm going to be specific with your question.
Okay.
What would you say to that independent gospel artist that did not have the resources that you have, but know that God has called them to bring forth this music?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say no matter what, do not give up. If God gave you the what do you want to say, the intent to do it, if he gave you the drive, if he gave you the passion, if he gave you the song, the lyrics, the music, whatever it is, the poem, the book, whatever it is he's giving you as an individual artist, God has the resources out there for you to use. So we learn as we grow spiritually that when God gives us a desire or a passion, he gives us everything we need to fulfill that. So if you're not finding that within yourself, I suggest that you go and seek, right? You go seek certain people, you seek certain things, you look up somebody you look up to. Well, what resources do they have that I could possibly use? Or what networks can I connect with that I can possibly use to get what God has given me out to the people? Key thing is to not give up. Don't give up on yourself. Just like the song He's Able says, don't give up on God because he'll never give up on you. Don't give up on what he's given you either because he's right there. I promise. And he will put the correct person or the correct thing in your pathway for you to accomplish what it is he's giving you to do. Don't give up. Keep walking. Keep going. Okay? Because he's got you.
That's good. That's good. Good, great advice. How can people connect with you?
You can connect with me on Facebook or Instagram at Kenya and Music. So it's the and symbol, Kenya and Music. I have 2 pages there, and then Facebook Kenya Robinson. It's actually my personal page, Kenya Ken Robinson. And then my Instagram page is linked to my Facebook somewhat, so you can see me there. But that's how you can reach me. Email cambromusic@yahoo.com. So that is KAMBROMUSIC@yahoo.com. That's another way to reach me. So
Okay. And I didn't have this on, so let me do this real quick. And all right. So that's her name. If you search, you will be able to find her on social media. You'll be able to find her music as well. It's at the bottom, scrolling across. Thank you so much for coming on.
thank
Thank you
you.
for sharing the nuggets and the inspiration, not just in terms of the actual production of the song, but all your gifts and all your talents. And I just wish you much success.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you for having me. I had such a good time during this interview. So thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Have this wonderful guest on, and her name is Tanisha Bloodshaw. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. So, Tanisha, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know where you're from, and just a little bit.
All right, sure. So I'm originally from Minnesota, but I moved to Georgia the end of 2021 with my two children. I have a 16-year-old and a 7-year-old, so definitely a handful. And just adjusting to Georgia life, but I am a business owner as well as an author of going on 8 books right now. But my latest release is God is Bigger Than That.
Okay, so sometimes I always try to do like a small pre-interview with my guests just to get an idea a little bit more about who they are and they complete a job form. But sometimes in that opening statement, they say something that kind of piques my interest. And you said you were originally from Minnesota
Yes, ma'am.
and then you moved to Georgia.
Yes.
Did you move to Georgia because you needed a warmer climate? Because let me tell you, if for those who have never experienced winter in Minnesota, it is nothing to play with. It takes a special kind of person to be able to live in Minnesota
Mm,
in the winter. I've been
yeah.
there a couple of times in the winter. Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
had to be there. One was for a wedding, and twice was for school. And I'm like, oh my God, how do people survive? It is cold. So, how has that, before we even get into the rest of it, how has that transition been for you to go from someplace like that into, moving to Georgia?
So originally, I'm born and raised in Minnesota, and I've lived in a couple of different warmer states, which was definitely a relief. But because my family is there, I kept moving back. And this last move, it was definitely a God move because for the first 6 months of me moving here, everybody kept asking me, "What brought you here? What brought you here?" I had no idea. I just said I had to go where God told me to go. So the perks are the weather for sure, because I do not enjoy the winters in Minnesota. But because I'm born and raised there, I'm used to it. But it's not. It's definitely not a choice to go back there. So when I do have to go there, I'm forced for sure.
Yeah, I don't quite know how you get to frigid temperatures like that. I just,
Yeah,
yeah, I can. And I'm on the East Coast, so I'm in New Jersey, so it's not like I don't experience cold weather. But I just needed people to really know and understand if you have never experienced, that cold of Minnesota, it is a different
yeah,
kind of cold. It is not like even the cold we experience here on the Northeast coast
no,
at all.
yeah. We
So.
get down to negative 50 degrees there.
Yeah, yeah. I realized just how cold it gets there when I was on the University of Minnesota campus, and they have the tunnel system. And the tunnel
Yeah,
system is there because the snow and the weather gets so bad that they have to actually maneuver to get to classes through the tunnels. I was like, okay, yeah, that's just way too much for me. I love the warm weather. So
yeah,
you are an author, like you said, of 8 books, but your latest book is God is Bigger Than That.
yes.
So tell us a little bit before you go into the details of the book. Tell us the inspiration for one, your writing, and then specifically for this book.
Okay. Yeah, so my writing is definitely based on my life experiences. And because I'm a mother, my kids definitely inspire me, especially with my children's books. All of the children's books that I wrote were based on them. So the last one, God is Bigger Than That, was based on a conversation between my mother and my son because my mom was living with me at the time, and he was afraid of the rain. And so when he does that, he goes into anybody's room that's open. And that night, it was my mom's room, and so he laid in the bed and, was trying to calm himself down. And so he started asking her a bunch of questions about God and how big God was. And the next morning, she thought it was so cute. She came into my office and she started telling me the story. And as she was telling me the story, I started writing the story. And so by the time she was done telling me the story, I had the book written.
Right. All right. So tell us a little bit more about the book.
Mhm. So it is based on, like I said, my son, his name is Sam, and my mom. and he is basically going through an adventure with her. So he's asking her, is God bigger than the sun? And so she's kind of educating him on how big God is throughout the whole book. So it's illustrated by my younger sister. She's an artist, so she's done all the illustrations for my children's book except for one. And it just takes them through like space, and it takes them through like the moon, the stars, and it's basically telling my son just again how big God is, based on what he knows. So is God bigger than the plane? Yeah, he's bigger than the plane. And not only is he bigger than the plane, he shows you different things throughout the universe, about how big God is, so that my son had a bigger understanding. And even, that how we teach how God is in our hearts, just giving them the understanding that even if that God is in our hearts, he's everywhere. And so that's what the book is about. And it has a colorful depiction of how God is in comparison to like the mountains and the stars and the moon and that type of thing.
Nice. That's really nice. So I interview quite a bit of authors, that come on through this platform, and, connected with authors, and I have a few books myself as well. But what made you particularly, was it your children, but what made you want to particularly write children's books?
So yeah, the children's book are definitely inspired by my children, because the first book I wrote was on financial literacy. So definitely different avenue completely. But my first book that I wrote was based on my daughter, because she loves science. To this day, she still loves science, and she loves superheroes. So I wrote a book about her called Sci-Fi Girl, where she's a child scientist, and she's also a superhero who travels through time to meet different people throughout history. So that was definitely the spark. And I wrote that right after I had my youngest, my 7-year-old. And I wrote that while I was on maternity leave, because she was just so fascinated with it. And like I said, she still loves science. So, it was the type of thing that I was just like, okay, well, if this thought is in my mind, then I can, put it on paper. And that's where we went with that.
Nice, nice. I love the idea of being able to use your children as the inspiration, because of course, if it's working for your children and it's an interest for your children, it's going to be something that other children are going to be interested in as well. And specifically, the God is bigger than that. I love how you just use simple comparisons, for a child who is young. I believe you said 4.
He's 7 now, but at the time, I believe he was 5 when I wrote it.
Five, for a 5-year-old to understand just how grand and how big, God is, to use those examples. So I love that. So you said you're also an entrepreneur, correct? A
Yes,
business owner. So tell
yes, I
us a
am.
little bit about the business.
So I launched a app last year. It's called Friend Me app, and what that allows people to do is pick the type of friends that they want. And it is focused towards college students and young entrepreneurs, or new entrepreneurs, not young, that are looking for like-minded individuals, so that they make connections and genuine connections with people. Because I know that as we get older, it's harder to make new friends, and we grow and we evolve. So it's like, I created a avenue where they can make those connections a little easier by putting like a profile into the app, and then they get matched with the people that will most likely be friends with them. So if you're an introvert and you don't know how to start those friendships, you can put that into the app, that I'm an introvert and I like to go bowling, or I like to network, and it's kind of like a swipe left, swipe right feature in the app, where you can get matched to the type of friends that you want. And I also am a certified coach, speaker, and trainer through the John Maxwell program.
Okay. So how did you get involved with that?
With the speaking or with the app?
Yes, no. Well, you know what? Let's go back to the app first. Yeah. So what made you want to create the app?
So it was a hobby of mine, that when I went to high school, I was in a tech program for science, math, and technology. So I've been building websites since I was 14 years old, right? And I don't know if you remember the Black Planet era, but I was that individual that was making everything fall on the screen and putting in the music and coding at a very young age. And as I got older, like I said, I was moving from Minnesota to Georgia, and I started seeing all these people putting in like friendship applications through social media, and nobody was liking it, nobody was commenting. And I said, you know what, it should be easier to make friends. So the whole concept was is to put in the profile information so that you're actually matched with people that would be a friend with you and be more compatible with you, whether, you know, they're not just going based on a picture, they're going based on your interests.
I like that.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And so you're the math science person, you're the author, and also now you're telling me you're involved with the John Maxwell certification. How did that come about?
So in early 2021, it's not a crazy story, but it's my story. I was going through a transition where, you know, I didn't feel like myself. I was working at a job that I just couldn't. I didn't feel like I could be myself, and I got this vision that I was in front of a stage, right? And I was speaking to these people, and I didn't know what I was speaking about, but the vision was persistent, you know, in my mind and in my spirit. And I came across the John Maxwell Instagram because I follow John Maxwell, and they were talking about, you know, the certification, and I just jumped for it. You know, like one of the things that he teaches is that you jump and then you build your wings on the way down, right? And that's exactly what I did. Like I signed up for the certification, went through the classes, went through the certification, and all in the same year, all in 2021, before I even moved to Georgia. The day that I moved to Georgia, within 24 hours, I was in Florida for the certification. Like that's how fast it went. And I did it because that's what God wanted me to do. So yeah, that's exactly how I became a certified speaker, trainer, and coach through the John Maxwell team.
So how's the certification been able to help you? What have you done, since becoming certified? What have you been able to do?
I've been able to get more speaking engagements through that certification because that's what it kind of leads you. It kind of gives you that credibility with your speaking because you have to go through a specific training with their trained people like Valerie Burton. She's one of the coaches there that teaches you how to do coaching, teaches you how to do speaking. So it has opened up the engagement. It's also given me resources to go through different events through the Maxwell team, where I volunteer twice a year for their program where you go to John Maxwell. He's speaking and he has other speakers. Like the last one I went to was Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, and he was there, and we were, you know, able to have those connections and be able to network with other speakers and like-minded individuals.
Great. So there's so much that you do, so many gifts, so many talents. I always like to ask my guests to share some nuggets, some words of wisdom with the viewing audience. There's so many different directions, like I said, you can go in, but I still would like for you to share, something that you could leave the audience with that would encourage them and, give them hope. Because at the end of the day, the focus on the show is really about inspiring people to, know that it's possible. It may not seem like it may not look like it, but
Mm-hmm.
it is possible. And you've done so many different things. So you are definitely proof that if you are persistent with it and you, like you say, you just jump, you will get your wings. God will guide you and support you on your way down. And I love that. I never heard that. I mean, I've listened to some John Maxwell stuff, but I've never heard that. But I really like that. And to me, that is, and John Maxwell is a believer. It sounds like something I often say to people. We just kind of throw that faith without works is dead out there, but what does that really mean practically? And I think what you just said kind of summarizes it. We always want God to show us the whole plan before we start to move. But
Mm-hmm.
if he showed us the whole plan, then there would be no faith required. And
Right.
so when you said that, I thought about that. You have to jump and realize that when you jump, God's going to give you all the tools and everything it is that you need as you're jumping. He's going to support you. He's not going to let you fall.
Mm-hmm.
You're good. You're good. He's there with you. I was just coming to mind like, yeah, that's confirmation for what I say about having the faith to move and not having to know the whole plan before
Yeah.
you move, because then again, that's not really operating in faith. So
Mm-hmm.
nugget, advice, inspiration, encouragement could you give to someone who's listening right now related to business, writing, or
Mhm.
whatever?
Yep. So one of my biggest things, and the reason why I move so fast in everything that I do, is do not sit on the gifts that God gives you,
Mm.
right? Because the thing is, He will give it to you, but if you do not act on it, He will give it to someone else. And I experienced that where I had an idea and I sat on it and I thought I was supposed to do it with a certain individual, right? So I was so invested with partnering with this individual that I let God had put that gift in me and I gave it to it was given to someone else, right? And that was a $1 billion idea that I got to see every single day when I went to the Mall of America because the idea was parking sensors, right? And I was given this idea years ago and I sat on it. Right. And so it was given to someone else. So now when God puts that seed in me, I jump on it right away and I nurture it right away. I don't know where it's going to lead me. I don't. But I
Mm.
know that if God gave it to me and it's persistent in my spirit, that I have to move on it. And that's what I encourage everyone that I coach, that I speak to, is that when God gives you that gift, jump on it. And He'll show you. He'll definitely guide you through the process because He gave you the idea and He's going to see you through to the end.
Perfect. I love it. Yes, that same advice I would give to many is that you just have to trust the process. You have to trust that it's if he has given it to you and it almost comes to the point where it like is almost irritating your soul because you're not moving in it. I
Mhm.
call it that spiritual irritation that you get because you're sitting and not moving. You know that that's God speaking to you, and so
Yeah.
just move. He will have you. Just learn to step out on faith and move. Thank you so much, Tanisha, for
You're
coming
welcome.
on. I wish you all the best in all the different areas of your life with the app,
Thank you.
with the continued writing of the children's books. I think we need more of that, honestly, in terms of just equipping kids to really continue to be dreamers and know who God is. That is an area I feel like is really a great area to be in. Again, I don't really get to talk to many people who are in the area of dealing with children's literature. So I appreciate that and applaud you for that. And then
Thank you.
continued success with your speaking and your coaching as well. Thank you again for being on.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was great speaking with you.